Welcome to a true spiritual adventure story like the world has never known with your host, Dr. James Weldon. This is Dr. Jim Weldon speaking to you from Heavenly Mountain in Boone, North Carolina. Our community who is dedicated to bridging our understanding of the possibilities of spiritual growth and development and sharing the common wisdom beneath the traditions of the world. Today in our episode of my third book, The Story Behind the Greatest Story Ever Told, talks about the surprising insight that this young child began to exhibit as he grew. The young Jesus was beginning to develop a reputation in his community as a speaker of truth and a knower of the hearts of others. Although the young Jesus was just a child, the wisdom within him reflected an understanding of the hearts of others that went far beyond the wisdom of a child. And in the community, the relationships with the outside community were maintained with care because it was known that at any time a claim could be made that could bring damage and harm to the family. The Romans were known to act quickly in disputes, and they would often decide based upon the wealth of the petitioner and not the truth of the argument. And circumstances were beginning to create a situation which apparently would require that Jesus leave the community for a while. In the earlier chapter, we talked about how his father had undertook a journey with a caravan to seek spiritual knowledge. And so at this time, the family was alone, and it was only the guidance of the young master that enabled them to avoid a potential tragedy. One day when Jesus was traveling, he saw at a distance an argument which is underway between two merchants, one in the community and one outside of the community. Jealousy had arisen in the hearts of one of these individuals who sought to claim the wealth of another. And this dispute had grown over time as the Jewish merchant had won a number of sales that the other merchant wasn't able to complete. And so the outside merchant sought to create a complaint against him to the judges, saying that he hadn't paid his true taxes that were due. And so the dispute had reached a point where it was possible that the Jewish trader could be taken to jail. So Jesus somehow knew the details of this conflict, even without being told, and quietly approached the Jewish trader, telling him that there would be a complaint made against his sales, saying that he had robbed the government of their just payment, the taxes that were due. And so the danger was real, and the challenge was real. The competing merchant had sought to have the goods of the Jewish merchant seized and taken as a payment for the taxes that were due. Although he had no real proof, claims were made. And so his friends, who were connected to the magistrate, decided to take action. Jesus knew that there was a danger that this merchant would be taken into arrest at any time, and so counseled him that he must have his paperwork in place. He must have proof of his sales. And so quietly, this merchant, on hearing the advice of the child Jesus, went about collecting his paperwork. And so when the time came for him to present the evidence that he was innocent, he had the proof that he was innocent. And so the case was dropped. But the jealous outside merchant wouldn't leave it be. He realized that the young Jesus had warned the Jewish merchant about this in advance. and with Joseph being gone, now sought to cause problems for that family. And so the family thought it was wise to leave the town for a little while. And so they made their way to the coast towards the Red Sea. You see, Jesus also was approaching his 13th birthday. And one of the traditions was that as a child, he could be married young. And so there were two reasons for them to flee to the coast temporarily. Number one was to avoid the wrath of this angry merchant whose claims against the Jewish merchant were eliminated. And secondly, it had become clear that the time perhaps for a marriage or the arrangement of a marriage was also to be planned. And the family knew that this child was not intended at this time in his life to marry. He needed to go and complete his education. And so they made their way to the coast. Really, they fled from the town, leaving their home locked during this time. And so as time passed, the wrath of the merchant began to subside. And somehow his heart was lifted so that his anger was no longer seeking to destroy the family of Jesus. And a great potential calamity was avoided. Being on the coast of the Red Sea, Jesus realized that now was the time for him to begin his journey to India because of his age and also because of the cooled but still wrathful attitude of the competing merchant. And it would be best for him to make his departure at this time. And so that is what happened, that the inner wisdom of Jesus protected them all. And of course, this will not be the first time. Throughout his life, there were many examples of how he felt and knew how to avoid dangers before they came. How he knew these things, how he felt these things, he had no idea. But he knew, and often that insight proved to be true. More and more so as he grew. So this is a story of the avoiding the danger before it came. So this is Dr. Jim Weldon sharing with you this short episode of the early life and the story behind the greatest story ever told. Join us again. Blessings. Thanks for joining us in our YouTube channel, books, podcast episodes on living the enlightened life.